Hello, and this is a presentation over Howard Phillips Lovecraft. A lot of people call him the father of Lovecraftian horror and the father of modern horror. Now, I don't really feel like this photo describes him very well, as his mind was chaotic like Edgar Allan Poe's and Stephen King, so I feel like that sums it up a lot more. Now, who was H.P. Lovecraft? Full name, Howard Phillips Lovecraft. He was born in 1890 and died in 1937 due to cancer. He was born into a wealthy family, but sadly that's kind of where it goes downhill. He suffered various mental issues after his father died in a hospital. He had a nervous breakdown and went to the hospital for 5 years. This caused Lovecraft to have a fear of mental health issues and a fear of, health in general. In 1904, his grandfather died, and he held most of the holdings on the family business, and this caused his family to plunge into debt. And that's why he was mainly poor, as the few photos we have of him in a suit are about all we have. The rest are not great. After this, his mother had horrible issues as well as himself. He had a nervous breakdown all the time. He had panic issues, he had panic attacks, he had lots of mental health issues. His mother had a pathophysiological love-hate relationship with him. Basically, at some points, she would love him, other points, she would hate him. Kind of like an abusive relationship, and it took a big toll on him. But the real issue wasn't that he was mistreated by his parents or that he had various mental issues. He blamed, as a lot of rich white people back in the day, he blamed foreigners and immigrants. It's sad to say that he was a racist. A big racist. Regardless of what angle you come at, regardless of what you do, a lot of his books, a lot of his stories boil down to him not liking anyone but white people. But he would go back on this as he also hated Jews, even though he married a Jew, and his closest friend for a long time was also a Jew. So he was a little two-faced. Many speculate why he was so racist, but around this time there was mass influx of immigrants into America, and as we know with American history, with a large flux of immigrants, they also will happily work under worse conditions, and white people wouldn't. So there's a lot of injustice and a lot of issues. One of the reasons is that he just had poor mental health. Despite his ability to soak in knowledge, was the only time he actually was happy. He was able to read and learn, and this would make him forget about his issues. And he was paranoid, and a lot of paranoid people, again, blame foreigners because they were different, as that's one of the main issues why people hate foreigners, because they're different. And he had severe social anxiety, which also led him to not like people. But despite all this racist, you think that a lot of racists and a lot of other people wouldn't like him. But his writing is so well, and he does a lot of good things. Well, good things in his books. But there's been a lot of black authors that have tried to redeem the qualities that they care about, as one would. Victor Lavelle, as I'm not sure how to say his name, I'm sorry about that one. He says, what that means is talking about things and shedding light on things, beginning to teach the genre as a whole as a way to talk about things that are wrong or broken or outdated, and being able to say, we can talk about this thing through and then keep the best of it and identify the worst of it. When it comes down to it, Lovecraftian horror is about eldritch monsters killing mercilessly. It's not about race. And while you can trace everything back in his books about it, most people don't really care about the race part. No one reads the Dunwich Horror to say how much black people are inferior. No, they read it so they can see the giant monster, as most people do. Now, you may ask, why was H.P. Lovecraft so darn important? Well, for his time in the 1900s and the 20th century, he did something quite interesting. The main reason why he was important is that he changed Western fiction concept on the universe. For the longest time, they had read the Bible, and in the Bible it says that God made man, and that basically man is the center of the universe. Everything God made was for man. Lovecraft didn't like this idea as he hated everyone, and he wanted a good way to prove it, and if you look far enough out in space, you can understand his logic. He believed, well, he didn't really believe, but in his books he wrote that the universe is... Just pause that. Now, the main question while we're here is, why is H.P. Lovecraft so important? Well, the main reason he was important was that he changed America, or the West, as many people call it, their concept of the universe. For the longest time, America has been very Christian, and being very Christian, we learned that God made the universe and everything for us, as that's what the Bible says. Lovecraft challenged that idea in his universe, in his books. He made the Cthulhu mythos, and he filled it with uncaring gods that only see humans as ants. Not necessarily something to be worshipped, not something to expect praise from, but simply ants. If they step on an anthill, they don't care. That's why the gods in the Cthulhu mythos see us as insignificant and unimportant. When he was alive, he made his work basically an early public domain, which he simply said to other authors, make your own fan fiction, and make your own stories about my work. And that, thankfully, has carried over till today. And, even today, it's still a public domain. Anyone can write about the Cthulhu mythos and publish it, and it's okay, because it is a public domain. It's allowed many, many people to work on his universe, and that's why it's so expansive, is that since anyone can work on it, they can. People want to work on things that are cool, and the Cthulhu mythos is one reason why it's still around, is because it is cool. And he just wanted people to write about it. He loved his work so much he wanted to share it. This caused the Cthulhu mythos to grow exponentially, even in his death in 1937. This allowed people even now to expand upon it, as just restating the point. Many people believe he is the father of modern-day horror and the father of cosmic horror, which he basically did invent. He was one of the first writers to talk about the universe and creatures outside of it that only see us as ants, a speck of dust in the cosmic universe, which we are. What is true is that Lovecraft really wasn't popular for a long time, until, in the 1970s, when people started picking up what Lovecraftian horror was, and they started making movies about it, and films, and games, and everything, and it picked up a lot of traction. And many people have direct adaptations, such as Deep One's Dagon, The Dunwich Horror, the books he wrote simply named as movies. And we're going to go over two of his stories and a few examples. The first one is The Shadow over Innsmouth. The Shadow over Innsmouth was his first book he published that was kind of a standalone. Most of them were with newspaper columns and separate entities. This was his first book. The Shadow over Innsmouth is about a decrepit town that has been taken over by a vicious cult, the Esoteric Order of Dagon. The story is about the narrator exploring the town and being chased by its residents after figuring out why it has a shadow, or why it's so decrepit. The cult worships a deity named Dagon, a fish god, basically. There's a few fish gods, because Lovecraft had a fear of the ocean, and he wrote a lot about the ocean, because he was scared of it. Here is a deep one. It is a half-human, half-deep one, and the story revolves around these creatures. And Innsmouth was a truly decrepit city that made even cities in the Depression look good, and that's saying something. The next story is The Dunwich Horror. And it's a big one. The book is long. It's kind of like the movie Alien. It's very long, and the monster doesn't get a whole lot of screen time, sadly. But The Dunwich Horror is about an albino woman that gets impregnated by Yog-Sothoth, the god of knowledge and wisdom and sight. After her and her father pray to Yog-Sothoth, in a rare chance, he looks back and impregnates her with a child that is half god, half man. But it's more half beast than anything, as this child grows exponentially and he gains knowledge quickly. He becomes kind of like his father, which this is not Yog-Sothoth. He takes a different form. This is the Dunwich Horror. As the boy grows, he's part god and part human, and he opens a portal to another realm, releasing the Dunwich Horror as it ravages and destroys local cities and towns and razes cities to the ground. Next, we'll talk about the people that was influenced by him, or that he influenced. H.P. Lovecraft, the father of Lovecraftian horror, the genre named after himself. Stephen King is a big one. He made It and The Shining, and many other films that are focused around people losing their mental faculties, people going crazy. Neil Gaiman, or Gaiman, I can't say it, I'm sorry, and John Carpenter. They all were heavily inspired by him. And we'll look at 3 works that were inspired by Lovecraft. Bloodborne, a video game, It, and Alien, 2 movies. The first one is Bloodborne. It's hard to sum up Bloodborne because of how complex it truly is. It covers so many topics that I couldn't cover it in one slide. I'm merely going to talk about why it has Lovecraftian influence. First, Bloodborne is when healing blood that corrupts people into beasts and awakens Eldred's nightmares. In Yarnum, the city, they find healing blood that allows basically to cure all ailments. The more they use it, though, the more they become like a beast, and the more corrupt the world gets. And as the world gets more corrupt, creatures emerge, like this, the Moon Presence, an eldritch deity that is so powerful we can't comprehend, but you end up meeting it in the game. Mankind deals with powers that are far beyond their natural limits, and disaster falls when it gets out of hand, when the Blood Church, the main faction that has the healing blood, loses control and monsters start to kill everyone. Next, it is It. It is about a demonic presence that has existed since the beginning of time. And its whole purpose, its whole reason for existence, is to kill us. I don't know the exact lore behind it, but I know it's every 23 years or so, it will come back from its hole and murder us simply because it wants to. Its Lovecraftian feel is very strong, as it is simply a creature that wants to kill us, and nothing more and nothing less. It has no will, it has nothing. It simply exists to hurt us and kill us. Lastly, Alien. This one might be difficult to understand, but another part of Lovecraftian horror is humans stumbling upon something they shouldn't have. And that's the entire point of Alien. Alien is about humans stumbling upon an ancient spaceship and discovering xenomorph eggs. Not knowing what they are, one of them gets infected. The movie is about the alien and the crew trying to survive as the alien kills them off one by one. The cosmic horror can be felt as the humans are messing around with ancient dangers that they shouldn't have been. As with many Lovecraftian stories, it's about humans stumbling into an ancient temple, stealing an artifact and an Egyptian curse, ruining many, many lives. And that's kind of Alien. People stumbling somewhere, they get an egg, and it destroys a lot of people in the process. So, in conclusion, H.P. Lovecraft was believed to be the father of cosmic horror and Lovecraftian horror, and is a big inspiration on pretty much all modern-day horror films that are based in sci-fi and paranormal. And hopefully, as people progress, they understand that he was racist, and that they can make stories that aren't so centered around that, as they already are. And I hope that more good stories are made.